Welcome to Funnel Hacker Radio Podcast, where we go behind the scenes and uncover the tactics and strategies top entrepreneurs are using to make more sales, dominate their markets, and how you can get those same results. Here's your host, Dave Woodward.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Funnel Hacker Radio. Today, you guys are in for a massive, massive treat. You have the opportunity of having basically one of the gods of all podcasting, a guy I have total massive respect for, and that's Paul Colligan. So Paul, welcome to the show.
Wow, thanks for having me, Dave.
This is, as I've mentioned, this is such an honor for me. I'm so excited to have you on. For those of you guys who don't know Paul is an Amazon bestseller on all sorts of crazy fun topics, everything from how to stream video, how to podcast, YouTube strategies. His work's been featured in several publications, including Huffington Post and Net Effect. This is the guy you're basically going to find speaking on stages around the world, because he absolutely knows anything and everything there is to do when it comes to podcasting and videos and YouTube strategies. I am so honored to have you on, and I'm so excited to get talking to you about this, because this is a topic I have so many people asking about all the time, and that is, so Dave, I hear all the time about the importance of doing a podcast, but how in the world do you actually monetize this? So Paul, anything else you want to add to your introduction before we dive right in?
No, I'll take that and send a copy to my mom. The only thing I'd say is that really the YouTube for me has always been about an alternative distribution channel for my podcast content. And the live streaming stuff has always been for me a mechanism for recording podcast content. So really in the midst of all the stuff I do, you can see me as very unfocused, which my wife does often, or you could see a grand scheme here, and at the center of the universe really is podcasting. So I'm excited to be here.
Oh, thank you. Again, we were just talking about just a few seconds before we started recording here, and that is, I am so jealous of your voice. You have this voice that was just made for this audience, and I wish so bad I had a powerful, commanding voice like you have. I come across this squeaky guy who's just trying to make ends meet here. So thank you for having just a commanding voice that will dominate the entire podcast. Yeah, there you go.
You're welcome. Yes, there we go.
So I want to just dive into this concept. You made mention as far as this whole intersection of podcasts and sales funnels. That to me is like the holy grail of all of this stuff. So if you don't mind, kind of just tell people a little bit about why podcasting is so important, why they should be doing it. I know you got an awesome book coming out on exactly how to podcast. In fact, I'm telling everybody right now, by the time this launches, the book should be hitting the bookstores, everywhere else you can buy it. So real quick, make sure you go to howtopodcastbook.com. Again, howtopodcastbook.com. You're going to get all the stuff that Paul's going to talk about, but I want to make sure you get it right away. So with that said, Paul, tell me a little bit about, when you look at podcasting, first of all, why podcasting? What is so important about podcasting?
Podcasting is all about focus, and podcasting is all about attention. If I get an email from Dave, he is on one of the three screens on my desktop. He's in, three monitors on the desktop, one of probably the 15 screens open with the phone playing in the background. There's 87 distraction points when I read an email from Mark. When I visit, Russell's site, that's a different window with the email from Mark. And, it's all over the place. And that's the world we play in. And I get that. And the desktop lets us do sexy things, video, interactivity, live, all that stuff. But here's the funny thing. I might have 37 people screaming for my attention, but right after this interview, I'm going to lunch. And when I go to lunch, I'm going to get in my car and I'm going to listen to a podcast. And whatever podcast I listen to on the way to lunch has my complete and undivided attention for the drive. Think about that.
I love that.
That's every marketer's fantasy. I mean, it's what we want really, really, really badly. 47 million Americans drive by themselves in their car to and from work on the average of a 30-minute commute. All you have to do to get their attention is be better than drive time radio. Can you be better than the weather every 3 minutes guy? And I'm going to bet you could be better than the weather every 3 minutes guy. So you have this intimate, wonderful, regularly scheduled conversation of time and depth and opportunity that you just don't get anywhere else. And that's the beauty of this. That's the beauty of podcasting that you don't get in any other format. If we need to go long, we'll go long. If this is a short topic, we'll go short. You'll release this. We were looking at the release time and I said, hey, let's make this smart, in terms with the release of the book. We have all that opportunity. So it is an intimate conversation, anytime, any place, anywhere, any device. And it's mind-blowing. It's absolutely mind-blowing what the opportunity we have. I do a lot of work with Joe Polish. And I did a presentation for Joe about his podcast. And he said, look up in the stats and find something funky in the stats to kind of get everybody's attention. And I went into the stats, and there was a country called Turkmenistan that I know nothing about. I don't know how much you know about Turkmenistan, but
nothing.
I looked it up, and like the first entry in Google at the time was like the CIA fact book for all the human rights violations. And then the second thing was like World Journalism Watch. And apparently this is like a ridiculously savage country, maybe savaged, not savage. 5% of them have internet access. Twitter is illegal. YouTube's illegal. Facebook's illegal. All the social networks are illegal. Yet Joe's show's getting downloaded on a regular basis in Turkmenistan.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, that's mind-blowing. I had back in the early days when we were trying to figure out consumption of podcasting, we asked our audience, we said, hey, just let us know how you consume this. We're trying to understand what the consumption protocol is like. And we got a lot of people were in the car. That was typical. But one guy said, oh, whenever I get an episode from you, I know it's going to be big, so I have a calming cup of tea and I go for a walk on the beach. And I'm like, wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah. One guy said, I listened to this with my teenage kid. And mind blowing. Now, back in the early days, we were taught, this is back when the iPod, believe it or not, I got into podcasting before the iPhone. My first podcast book actually doesn't mention the iPhone. And back then, the iPod used to be really, really locked up tight. And I did the show, and we were talking about how tightly locked up it was, and we were talking about how gurus, a Russell Brunson type of character could really do well one day in the future if there was a preloaded media player with its content. Look at what Russell's doing now with marketing in your car, and I think point is proven. But back then, 10 years ago, 12 years ago, we were chatting about it and how they need to unlock it and yada, yada, yada. I'm at my first podcasting event. And a guy walks up to me and he says, hey, my name is Dan Safka. I go, what do you do, Dan? And Dan goes, I make preloaded media players for gurus and speakers. Like, holy crap, this is awesome. I've been talking about you, like I didn't know you exist. I've been talking about you on the show. And he goes, yeah, I know. That's where I got the idea for the company.
Oh my gosh.
Like, what? You launched a company based on my ramblings? Yeah.
Jeez.
That is
so cool.
Intimate. And then, of course, my favorite story, one of the emails we got back, and I still will not forget this ever. We get an email back that says, Mr. Johnson has me burn the episode to CD. I give the CD to the driver, and Mr. Johnson listens to it on the way home. I don't know what the driver does with the CD once Mr. Johnson has arrived home.
Oh my gosh.
So this is an intimate conversation, a dialogue, a piece that you just have nowhere else. Nobody gets it. YouTube doesn't get this. Facebook doesn't get this. Email doesn't get this. Only podcasting gets it. So that's why I love it. Now let's talk the problems, because there are problems. There are problems in podcasting. Number one, the anytime, any place, anywhere element of podcasting removes urgency. If I go to a podcast, I log onto Funnel Hacker Radio today, and I see you've got, or Funnel Hacker Radio, at least at iTunes, I see you got 125 episodes. As cool as this show is, I cannot, consume that all in one day. So it's in the back of the mind. It's that perpetual folder on the shelf kind of thing. I know one day I'm going to go to Funnel Hacker Radio. That's bad. Now we got to do something about that. And then the other thing is podcasts are so cool, so intimate. I finally realized, my friend Ed Dale explained this to me, and Ed did this perfectly. He said, podcasts are cookies. Okay, what does that mean? Do you like cookies?
I love chocolate chip cookies. They're like my downfall.
Exactly. Everybody loves a cookie. Now, Dave, does your mom make cookies?
No,
No. Who makes cookies in your life?
my wife does.
Okay, beautiful, beautiful. So, your wife, you come home one day, and what's her name?
Carrie.
Carrie?
Yep.
Okay, you come home, Carrie has a plate of chocolate chip cookies, and you go, thank you, Carrie. This is why I love you. This is why I married you. It's beautiful. Now, it's confession time, Dave. Have you ever got an extramarital cookie?
Yes, I have.
Yes, you have. Mrs. Fields? Was it that Mrs. Fields?
It actually was Otis Spunkmeyer.
Okay, Otis. Good, Otis. Now here's the deal. When you think of Otis and cookies, you have no problem paying for an Otis cookie.
You're right.
Okay? You have no problem. Cookies, you pay for cookies. But the thing is, if you came home one day and she had a plate of cookies and she said it's $1 per cookie, like the whole relationship is destroyed.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And here's the thing. A lot of podcasters go a couple of hundred episodes giving, and then all of a sudden they try to sell a $2,000 course. That's like you coming home one day and your wife and your mom or your boyfriend or your girlfriend or your dad or your maid or Mr. Johnson, whoever, suddenly starts charging you for cookies. There's a pattern interrupt there that is just unacceptable. It doesn't work.
You're right.
You know? And so people try to solve that one of two ways. Way number one is they've ignored that reality. And in the ignoring of that reality, they failed miserably because nobody buys anything of significance from a podcast. It's just not the communication nature. It's not the vehicle. The podcast is the free cookie. You give, you give, you give. You know, how many books am I going to sell from this? I don't know. You've got a pretty good audience. Maybe I'll sell a few. But this is giving. This isn't strategic. And you know, the Kindle version will be cheap and all that stuff. You know, podcasting is a giving mechanism. Okay? Now, here's what happens. The other people go, well, there's no way that I can sell something on the podcast, so they do the whole ad insertion thing. So now you've got a show about funnel hacking that all of a sudden has a commercial from GoDaddy Domains or something, you know, something ridiculous. And then people listen and they go, well, okay, it's paid for by the commercial, the transaction's done, reciprocity received, and they go away, you know? Neither one of those mechanisms are that good. Here's the way the mechanism gets good. Okay? Here's the way the mechanism gets good. Do you happen to know what episode this is going to be by any chance?
I can tell you this is going to be episode 127.
Beautiful. So when people want to find episode 127, what do?
They go to Funnel Hacker Radio and try to find it.
Okay. So a lot of podcasters, here's the first thing I want you to do, Dave.
Okay. I'm taking
Fix
notes.
the website.
This is awesome.
Fix the website. Here's how you find episode 127. It's at funnelhackerradio.com/127.
Got it.
You know how you find episode 128? It's at funnelhackerradio.com/128. Okay? Now, I'm going to say you go to funnelhackerradio.com/127. And I'm going to say there is an ability for you to download a worksheet on the 4M's of podcast monetization. It's a worksheet that I've done for my high-paying clients, and it's something we can't go into on this episode, but I want to give it to you. So head out to funnelhackerradio.com/127, and you can get that. Now, what I just did here was I started a funnel. Now, we're going to continue to give. We're going to continue to give. But now people have a reason to come to the website, and people have a reason to give you their email address. And I'll send you the PDF file. We've just started the cycle. Now, everybody who signs up for the 4M's of Podcasting worksheet, they're used to being marketed by email. You sell them something by email, they're used to that. They know that. It's like Otis Spunkmeyer paying $1.50 for the cookie. You get that. That groove's there. This is how podcasting and funneling, this is how they come together. So now you produce the show around a giveaway. You produce the show around a PDF, a lead magnet, an ethical bribe, whatever, your internet guru told you to call it. Call it that, but then base your show around it. Now imagine, what's one of your favorite shows, Dave, other than, of course, the podcast report? What's one of your favorite shows?
Would be Marketing Secrets.
Okay, Marketing Secrets. So Marketing Secrets is a great show. Now, if you started listening to Marketing Secrets and that Russell character starts it out by saying, hey, today's topic is so huge, I had my designer develop a really beautiful flow chart that you can print off and put on your wall. We're going to go over everything in the flow chart in this episode, and it's the full episode, but I want you to grab that flow chart by going to marketingsecrets.com/8422 or whatever episode number is on. Now still give the episode, still give the full cookie, still give everything refresh. It's still intimate. It's still personal. It's all the things that podcasting are. But now those who are really interested in this topic will come in. They'll give you their email address for the PDF. Now, here's what's beautiful. You get a number of things from this. And the coolest of which, at the bottom of the list, is the email. Here's the thing. If you do 1,000 downloads about a topic, okay, and you offer those 1,000 downloads where to go for more, and nobody opts in, you know what you've just realized about your audience? Nobody cares about that topic, or at least going further with that topic.
Right.
This is huge.
Dude, I'm taking notes here.
This is the best stats in the world. Now, here's the funny thing. You take 10 episodes, you take the 10 topics that you think your audience is the most interested in. You do 10 episodes about those 10 topics. You divide the downloads by the opt-ins. You figure out which one has the highest percentage for more engagement. Bam, you just did more research. You have more stats. You have more of anything than Apple will ever give you. Now, what you need, of course, is a funnel tool. You need a tool where you can start with email and maybe a download and a video and that kind of thing. This is why I'm so excited to come on the show here, because anybody listening to this knows ClickFunnels and knows what the opportunity here is. And of course, once you build your template once, you create one for every episode and you go smart. This is how podcasting makes money.
Oh my gosh, I'm loving this. This, honestly, I can tell you, I've had this conversation with so many people saying, Dave, it's so much work. It's so much time and effort. I don't see I'm ever going to be able to get any return on my investment in podcasts besides just throwing a whole bunch of free content out there. This has answered every question anybody's ever asked me about podcasting. And you're the first person who's ever provided it. I mean, this is, Paul, I love this intersection of podcasting and sales funnels. And the whole way of monetizing this is fantastic.
And it's easy and it's natural and it's personable and it's, and you could do things different ways for your audience depending on how your audience is and how they go. But here's the great thing. If you, so we do those 10 episodes with those 10 topics. Obviously, the first email is, here's your giveaway. But email number 2 is, here's more content about that topic.
So are you referring them back to the other podcast then?
Well, it depends. Like if you've got another episode about that, send it back, but you might have another piece. You might have a giveaway. You might have, but imagine if I listened to the intersection of podcasting and funnels and I got a giveaway. And then the next day you emailed me something that also related to the intersection. And then the next day you emailed me something that also related to the intersection. I am yours forever.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And here's the cool thing. I am yours forever if I listened the day this came out. I'm yours forever if I listen to this 4 years after this episode comes out. Because you set up the funnels and it's all in play.
Oh my gosh, this is awesome.
Now, this does break some podcasting norms because the average podcaster thinks, well, I'll just get somebody fun on the phone and we'll interview. You got to have a giveaway. Now, sometimes you just get smart. Sometimes maybe, you have a cheat sheet. The greatest takeaways from it, or maybe you talk to the person you're interviewing ahead of time and say, is there something you can give away or this or that? You got to find something. You have to work a little bit harder but the benefits, the payoff is just absolutely tremendous. So now you do 20 episodes with 20 different topics that you think your audience is about. You do the math, you figure out which one's the most important. You launch season 2, you focus entirely on that, and you just narrow in on the niche. And that's where podcasting becomes fantastic. And then when you hear things like, well, I just got added to the Google network. I don't know if that's good or not. Well, of course it's good, because the Google network is now adding opt-ins to your list.
Sure, of course.
I just got added on Stitcher, or I just found out, I can't say her name, but she rhymes with Shmamexa. And she's in the room right now. She's a tube. She comes from Amazon. My show's on there. And if that's getting me opt-ins, that's fantastic. If some lame offshore pirate guy thinks that he can download my MP3 and he can redistribute my MP3 for fun and profit, you know what? God bless him or her. And so it just becomes the most fantastic device in the world. If you got an audience that doesn't want to do podcasts, burn these bad boys to CDs and give them out. Put them on preloaded media players. Do whatever makes sense. That's the intersection. One person who's doing this really, really well is a gal named Amy Porterfield. I don't know if you've had her on the show yet. Amy's a dear friend of mine. And it was beautiful. Amy was at a recent event, and somebody was asking, it was Q&A. And they asked Amy, they said, hey, Amy, I noticed that, most of the time you do the opt-in thing, but every once in a while you don't do one. And is that because you want to give to your audience? Is that because marketing, blah, all these high and mighty things? And Amy goes, it was beautiful. It was Amy in pure Amy form. Amy goes, no, those are usually the ones where I owed somebody a favor, and I'm kind of annoyed with those. Because every episode is a machine for her.
She was one of our top 10 affiliates on Russell's Expert Secrets book launch, and she literally did nothing but the podcast. Nothing but the podcast.
But the thing is, she probably did a giveaway.
Sure.
I don't know that episode. And she probably mailed to the people who signed up for the giveaway on a regular basis.
I was so shocked. Honestly, it was one of the main reasons I wanted to have you on, because I'm like, I am missing here on this podcasting game. And so when you and I met at Genius Network, and then also over at Product Launch Forum and stuff, I was so crazy. I was just like, oh my gosh, I've got to make sure you're on, because you are like the guy. And this is exactly what I was hoping you were going to deliver. And as always, you always over deliver. I mean, Paul, I think it is so cool that you've been able to help people understand the monetization of a podcast, because I've struggled with myself. As you mentioned, we're over 100 episodes, and I have people come on and they'll give their link or whatever at the end, and I'm totally fine with that. But I've never been able to actually drive traffic and see a way of actually bringing people back into our funnels by doing this. And I'm not kidding. I have not. I'm taking so many notes. I'm like, I've got to make sure this gets implemented. So this is fantastic content. Thank you so much.
Well, and let's come back in a couple of months and re-examine what you've done, and we can do a review for everyone, and everyone can look at how funnels can be integrated into their show as well, because a podcast funnel intersection is great, obviously, for Funnel Hacker Radio, but it's also great for every single niche out there. This is not a model for only a certain segment. This is a model for everyone.
Well, because I think the hardest part is what you explained earlier, Paul, and that is it is that whole free cookie dilemma where I feel violated. Honestly, it drives me crazy when I'm listening to a podcast. I know that they've got an advertiser on, and the advertiser has absolutely nothing to do with the content. It's totally disconnected. And I'm thinking, okay, I get it. You got to make some money on it. And I'm fine with people making money, obviously. That's the whole reason business exists.
But it's weird. It's weird.
You're right.
And it's unnecessary. And I had a client. I don't want to talk poorly about anyone, but I experimented with ads for a little while on the podcast report, just to, I'd always said that it was weird. I'm like, I better, actually speak from experience. And I did it, and it was weird. And, and you just don't have to. And that's the thing. One of my big, monikers is the only problem with new media is when you treat it like old media. Old media, you had to insert the ads. That was the only option. Now we don't have to anymore. Now it's fantastic. Russell makes good money. He's a smart boy. But one of the great models is Russell goes out on stage. Russell teaches his brains out for whatever the segment is, and then Russell makes an offer for more. Like, it's one of the greatest conversion models in the world. A webinar. Teach your brains out for whatever time you have, make an offer for more. Podcasting. Give for the time you have, make an offer for more. It's the same thing. Imagine if Russell got up at, Joe Polish's Genius Network annual event, and halfway through it said, "This presentation brought to you by Audible. You can get a $7.95 free." I mean, the audience, what? Right?
You're right.
So now let's talk. So I just talked how beautiful podcasting is. I just chatted about the elephant in the room. I just chatted about the answer to the room. So now, of course, everybody's question is, okay, how do I podcast?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's the next step. I didn't want to be the how to podcast guy because the money isn't in the how to podcast part. Actually, there are some people making a lot of money in the how to podcast part, and I'm kind of frustrated with them because they've made it more complicated than it needs to be. But, back to Joe Polish, it kind of all comes back to Joe. On a regular basis, Joe sits up on stage and says, if you want to learn how to podcast, talk to Paul. Again, I don't want to be that guy. So I finally created the How to Podcast book. And it's the process that we use here at the Podcast Partnership. Every client goes through this process. And it's really, really, really simple. It's 4 steps. Step 1, make digital media. Actually, create digital media is the new official one for the new version of the book. Create digital media, step 1. We're doing that right now. In your particular case, you and I are on Skype. We're running both Macs. You've got Ecamm Skype recorder going. And as I say this, I probably should have had a backup for you. But sometimes it's 2 people who just click record on the iPhone. Russell does it driving to work. Amy has a soundboard and a mixer set up. A bunch of people have different ways. I'm dealing with one client who has literally, thousands of hours of training. And she's like, well, I don't want to create any more content. You don't have to. It's already been created. Step 1, create digital media. Step 2, put it online. Makes sense. Step 3, make it podcast ready. Now, putting something online and making it podcast ready is not the same thing. But of course, putting it online is the first step. And then once you've made a podcast ready, you tell the world. That's it. Those are the 4 steps. And so I've got this book at howtopodcastbook.com. The current version of the book, actually, really honestly, let me flip through the pages here. Really only the first 65 pages count. Now I say that because the interview, there's a guy named John Lee Dumas who's massive in the industry, and then there's this bum named Russell Brunson, and I've got interviews that I've done with both of them on the media creation part. I do a whole thing with Russell about creating, at that time it was called Marketing in Your Car, and but that's the book, and that's the process, and it's just not that complicated. And the links are there to the mic, what microphone, what host, all that stuff. It's in the book. It doesn't need to be complicated. Read it. My 2 favorite stories, my 2 favorite paths, my 2 favorite outcomes for this podcast is, number 1, the person who says, "Hey, Paul, I read your book in an hour. I'm now podcasting." God bless you. Awesome. And by the way, I even say in the book, when you podcast as a result of the book, come out to our Facebook page, tell the world. And then there's those who read the book who say, "Hey, Paul, I realize what it is. I don't want to manage this. Can you manage it for me?" That's how I get my clients.
So cool.
But honestly, I'm thrilled if you take this book and it's all you need.
That's awesome. Seriously, I hope everyone got that as far as create digital media, put it online, make it podcast ready, and tell the world. If you don't mind, help people understand what's the difference between put it online and make it podcast ready.
Well, podcasts. So the other thing we got in the book is we have my definition. I'll tell you, boy, Dave, if you want to start controversy, boy, try to get the definitive definition of podcasting. It's absolutely hilarious. Everybody wants to have their definitive definition. And when I first did this book, I tried to put it up against the podcasters to have us finally agree on something. Oh, that didn't happen. But here's what I came up with, and I'm pretty proud of it. Audio or video made available online for easy on-demand consumption and or subscription-based delivery. Okay? The putting it online part for on-demand consumption, we're very used to. That's, link to the file on my website, use a flash player, that kind of thing. It's the on-demand consumption and subscription-based delivery. That's the part where you have to make it podcast ready. Spoiler alert, you need a company that'll host it and will make an RSS file for you. Spoiler alert number 2, there's a company called Libsyn, Libsyn.com. They're the best in the industry. I use them. All my clients use them. Spoiler alert number 3, you use the coupon code Paul and your first month is free.
Love it. We use Libsyn as well.
Yeah, most of the world does. And you're done. And there are, part of the whole people making it complicated, the feed is just so that your phone knows that there's a new episode, and you could write that yourself or you could let a computer write it. And here's the deal. When you do things that the computer should be doing, the computers win. But like that's the Matrix. That's like every bad sci-fi movie. So, do not welcome the robot overlords here. Let the computers do the hard work for you. I am, the podcast guy, whatever. But, you put a gun in my head and say, Paul, write a feed or we kill your family. My family's dead. I don't know how to write a feed because that's what computers do. It's sort of like vegetables. That's what my dinner eats, I don't have to be part of this. And I think the algorithm, or I think the analogy is, when you send something to the printer, you're not sending a Microsoft Word doc to the printer. Microsoft Word is converting your document to a language called PostScript. And nobody knows PostScript. Nobody writes in PostScript. You write in Microsoft Word or Pages if you're on the Mac, or Scrivener if you're a cool guy. But all of these translate to PostScript, which writes to the printer. And that's what you do in the podcast, is you just have somebody write the feed, computer write the feed for you, and Libsyn does it tremendously. And that's it. And that's the process. And, and once you get up there and start downloading and boy, if you do 1,000 downloads and nobody wants more, it's time to it's not time to get a better microphone. It's time to figure out, why did I just offer 1,000 people something and they don't want more? And it's just not that complicated once you follow this process. So the book is an hour read at the most. I had somebody who said, somebody at the I gave it away at 2 Genius Network events ago, and somebody called me, said, Paul, I left it on the plane. I finished it, I left it on the plane. I'm like, well, then you finish it. Like leave it on the plane. It doesn't matter. Like, you're done. Like, get to work. It's time to make it happen. And she was like, oh yeah. And then of course, a couple of days later, she called me and said, can I hire you to do it? And been one of my favorite clients since. So it's not, it's not that complicated, but this is it. This is the whole thing. And it's there. So you just got how to podcast. You just got how to make money with podcasting. You just got a model to follow. You're done. Have a cookie.
Have a cookie. Oh my gosh, Paul, you are amazing. I am so thankful to have you on. This is going to change literally the lives of thousands of people. And I cannot say enough. Anybody who's listening to this, again, if you have any questions about this, Paul is the go-to guy. We joke around about it all the time. But again, first and foremost, go and get his book, howtopodcastbook.com. Make sure you pick that up. And then most importantly, do exactly what he said, and that is implement. I think, Paul, one of the things I've loved, aside from the fact that you're just such a kind, generous, giving person, your material so well and are always out there helping other people in this industry do these types of things. But I think most importantly is it's been neat for me to see how many people have reciprocated coming back to you as clients or as need additional help and paying you for your advice, because you epitomize the whole idea as far as a person who gives and gives and gives, and the world just rewards tremendously because of that.
Oh, it works for me, I'll tell you that much.
It's great. Well, as we get close to wrapping things up here, anything else? I'm almost afraid to let you go, because I'm like, I know I'm supposed to be asking him something else. What am I missing? So, Paul, is there anything else that I should be asking you that I haven't asked that I need to make sure our audience hears about?
Not not really. I mean, I just gave you a 101, and 101 is not 101 is not mic selection. Um, 101 is not hosting selection. 101 is what's your message.
I love it.
And then 102 is once you get going, what do I do with this? And then that becomes traditional marketing. Now, I'll tell you, a lot of people are really afraid to, if I put an ad for, and I love Audible. Actually, I know the CEO of Audible. He's actually one of the reasons I was inspired to podcast. I mean, I adore that company. But there's just a, complete disconnect. And the thing is, if I put a complete disconnect in my show and it doesn't work, I could blame it on the disconnect. If I have a show that puts everything I just chatted about today and I don't see any results, the only person I can blame it on is me. So, this is a serious moment here. You have to, kind of be accountable now. It's no more, let's put it out there and let's see what happens. Now it's like, is this thing working to strategy? But I'll tell you, one of my favorite, we'll end with this. One of my favorite podcasters is a gal by the name of Mignon Fogarty, the Grammar Girl. I don't know if you know that show or not.
I don't, huh?
Mignon started in the early days. She is one of my absolute favorite podcasters on the planet. Mignon started one day with the concept of, podcast with what you know. She was a science editor. She knew science. So she does this big, complicated science show. And it sucks the life out of her after about 2 episodes because it was a lot of work. And she goes, what do I do? I'm a science editor. Well, there's 2 words in that statement. There's science and there's editor. So she comes up with this idea for a show called Grammar Girl, where she spends about 5 minutes touching on a certain piece of grammar. There, all that stuff. Each episode, 1 bit of grammar. And there are people out there who love grammar. I resign myself to there's probably some rules there, but but she edited it, so she goes from a show that sucks her life dry to a show where she's in her own, she's in her element. She has like 6 or 7 episodes of like a 5 to 6 minute show. She gets the book contract, the real book contract. A couple of weeks later, she gets a call from Oprah.
No way.
Less than 10 episodes into the show, saying, what was Oprah's team? Hey, Oprah made a grammar mistake, and a whole bunch of people emailed in and said she should have Grammar Girl on the show. We don't know who you are. Can you come on the show? So, she calls her book agent and she says, that thing where you come out with the book and then you go on Oprah. Yeah, well, we're going to do this in reverse. I'm going on Oprah, And so she was on Oprah like 3 or 4 days later, and you could find the thing on YouTube. And she came back and she's like, boy, it sure stinks that, my book's not out yet. And her editor goes, well, didn't you hear? Well, what do you mean? She goes, well, look at iTunes, go to audiobooks. She goes to audiobooks and it's Grammar Girl's Guide to Grammar or something like that. And she said, well, I don't have an audiobook. They went in and they edited like the 12 episodes they had at that point.
Oh, that's awesome.
They made an audiobook. They put it on Audible. She was the #1 book on Audible for 3 months.
Oh, that is awesome. That is so cool.
All this wouldn't have happened if she didn't if she didn't go to herself, hey, the science thing isn't working.
I love that.
She knew that podcasting was real. She knew that she wanted to do it. She just had to refine the process. So for everyone, 101 is you got all the facts you need, buy the book. Now do it. And if it works, keep doing it. If it doesn't work, figure out why it doesn't work and get to work.
I love it.
Now, Oprah, you can't be on Oprah because, she doesn't do TV anymore. And so you don't have that option, but there will be others for you.
I love it. Everybody who's listening, obviously, make sure you get the copy of howtopodcastbook.com. Also, start listening to Paul's podcast. It's The Podcast Report. Highly, highly recommend it to you guys. Check it out. And Paul, if they want to get a hold of you, what's the best way of reaching out to you?
Twitter's probably, Twitter or Facebook is the easiest. Get this, paulcolligan.com/Twitter, paulcolligan.com/Facebook, paulcolligan.com/Amazon. Pick your platform of choice, and that's where you can find me. I don't blog. I think my last blog is like a 1.5 years old, so probably don't do that. But pick the social network of your favorite, paulcolligan.com/forward. and you're good to go there. Twitter's fun. It's easy. Facebook's there. Whatever works for you. We'll get there eventually.
I love it. Well, Paul, thank you so much. I so grateful to have you on the show, and appreciate all that you can do for me and for Russell and for our entire community. So thanks again, bud.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Funnel Hacker Radio Podcast. If you'd like to be notified anytime we release a new episode, just subscribe over at funnelhackerradio.com. In addition to that, we'd love to send you a free gift. You can find that free gift at funnelhackerradio.com/free trial. One last thing is we love giving away cars. So if you'd like access to a free dream car, all you have to do is go to funnelhackerradio.com/dream car and you'll get all the details. Thanks again for listening.